Today we celebrate the second edition of the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industries Award. The first one was last year, a great event, and this year I see it's taking a next step further down the road. I will talk a little bit about the importance of such awards, but before I do that, I think sometimes we forget the history of some of these institutions that we celebrate with or that organize these events. And I wanted just to quote the start, 1960, the creation of this institution. And if you bear with me, this is our first president, Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, and he quoted, because at that time there were two different business associations. It's actually in the leaflet. But he said, "The government considers this situation anonymous in a country which is opposed to discrimination of any form, and is therefore today issued directives that the government would only recognize one chamber of commerce to represent all private interests in Ghana." This is how this entity that we are celebrating with today was created. And I think it's very relevant as we sit here and celebrate the second edition of the Business Awards. Why is that relevant? As you can imagine, as a representative, as Deputy Minister of Trade and Industry, businesses is key. But it's even more important because our president, this government's vision of a Ghana beyond aid, which is the very essence of the theme of this particular award, centers on the importance, the role that the private sector plays. The private sector, we often mention, is the engine of growth. But sometimes we starve that engine of oil. The fuel is a little contaminated, if we can get it. It may be a bit too expensive to actually buy the fuel, or the engine may be so old it doesn't run very efficiently. So while we may be using diesel, others are going to electric. So if this engine of growth is the private sector, then it's important that those organizations that represent the engine of growth are the best in class and can play the very central and pivotal role they have to play in the transformation of this economy. If ours is a quest to fundamentally transform the structure of this economy for one that is an exporter of raw materials and an importer of every other known good known to man, then we have to fundamentally ensure that those business entities that represent, those organizations that represent that engine of growth has to be best in class. And best in class means you have to celebrate those organizations that are trailblazers, the ones that are carving a path, the ones that are showing a way of how to do it, not necessarily in the 21st, but perhaps thinking of the 22nd century. Because if innovation and history has shown us anything, it is that those that stand still die. And the one constant in this world, perhaps only next to that of death, and perhaps, if with the governor's permission, taxes, is that of change. I know the governor doesn't manage the taxes, but... And so it is so important that we celebrate these businesses. And it's interesting that the categorization of the celebration is not linked just to what you may call sector. I was very interested to read that there are three key areas. One is the businesses, the personalities, and then, as importantly, the institutions. Because though we may come and go, the one thing we will leave behind is those institutions that we serve are a part of. And so it is critical, as we sit here today and come through the second edition, that we tip our hat, we bow our heads and congratulate all of the organizations, personalities, and institutions that have done so well. Because it is through that celebration and through that acknowledgement that, one, we give credit where credit is due, and two, we engage the next generation that want to step in the footsteps of the previous generation. They say success breeds success. So if we need to celebrate success to ensure that the next round of success comes through, then that becomes a critical element. So if this government's core is the transformation of this economy, and we believe the private sector's role is to be that engine of growth, while as government, we focus on ensuring the key aspects that we can do as government and not get in the way of the private sector. That includes macro stability, fiscal stability, ensuring that we provide the framework, the environment that allows you, the private sector, to blossom. Not to succeed, but to blossom. Because we also need our giants of industries. We also need our leaders that be able to lead the next generation, if you will, to the next stage of our transformation. So if that is the key to what it is that this government believes in, then it is critical that we celebrate and that we tip our hat and we ensure those that are trailblazers get the credit that is due. It is for this very reason that we within the Ministry of Trade Industry, on behalf of my minister, we support wholeheartedly the Chamber's effort on its awards. And that is why we made sure that every year we are here to support. Our president made sure the maiden edition is there. I'm here with many members. We have obviously our president of our Council of State, many business leaders here, heads of institutions, to ensure that the message is clear. We celebrate with you because it is through your successes that we will also achieve our successes. If the two parts don't tango, it becomes a solo dance. And we need to tango. And that requires two parties to play their role, government and the private sector. So as we sit here and remember 1960s, the formation of this institution, and we celebrate the 36-odd awardees and those that have won, I would like you to please remember that it is through these 36 of today, of yesterday, of tomorrow, that we will start carving out a future of a Ghana beyond aid. A future of a Ghana that we can all proudly say we are a part of. A future of a Ghana that makes it clear we can take our table at the high table of world countries, where we walk with pride as who we are with Ghanaians, where Ghanaians don't have to try and go across the Sahara Desert to look for further economic fortunes because they can find their own right here in our country, where we can engage ourselves, where we can also show we too can, because we have demonstrated with successes. So in those spirit and in those few words, I would like to welcome you and then congratulate every single one of the 36. For those that didn't make it, there is next year, and I have no doubt, knowing the innovation of some of the members of the chamber, we will see some new development. And because innovation is a constant in all we live in this world, I look forward to seeing more exciting categories as we go on.